I never imagined that a simple cup of coffee with my 70-year-old neighbor would upset every certainty of my perfect life and ignite within me desires that I didn't dare confess even to myself. My name is Teresa. I am 26 years old, and I have been married to Filippo for just 3 years. Initially, Filippo was everything I had ever wanted in a man. Affectionate, attentive, always ready to surprise me with small gestures of love. I felt safe in his arms, convinced that nothing could break our harmony. But things have changed for some time. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing, while for us it is fundamental. Philip, he became distant. Work seemed to suck him in completely. He spent hours on the phone, immersed in calls that didn't concern me, and his eyes, once so warm, were now cold and distracted. Often, even when we were together, I had the feeling that his mind was elsewhere. Our bed, once a nest of passion, had become a silent place, devoid of intimacy. And it was precisely into that void that Bruno entered. Bruno was my neighbor, a mature man, 69 years old, with an intriguing aura and a penetrating gaze that seemed to delve into you. There was something about him that attracted me, like an invisible magnet. His silver hair, elegant bearing, and the confidence of his gestures spoke of a life lived intensely. Bruno, he lived alone, and his home was a refuge out of time. Every detail was carefully looked after, from period furniture to objects collected during his travels. Every time I passed his door, I felt a strange curiosity mixed with a thrill that I couldn't explain. Our first real meeting was completely casual. I was returning from the gym, still with damp hair and warm skin from training, when Bruno greeted me from his garden. He invited me in to show me his collection of vintage records. There was something in his low, enveloping voice that made my defenses melt away. Without thinking too much, I accepted. As soon as I crossed the threshold, I felt like I was entering a different world. The walls were covered with black and white photographs. The furniture had that scent of old wood, and everywhere there were small objects that told stories. Bruno offered me a glass of red wine, and I immediately felt at ease. We started talking, and the hours seemed to slip away weightlessly. Bruno told me about his travels, his past loves, and about that woman who had marked his life. A story full of secrets, which I barely touched on, leaving my imagination free to wander. From that evening, I began to return to him often. I made excuses to Filippo, saying that I was going out with old friends, when in reality I was taking refuge in Bruno's house. Each visit was a little escape from reality. There, among his things, I felt alive, desired. There had never been anything physical with Bruno, but the tension between us grew every day. Our bodies would accidentally touch, his fingers sometimes lingering a second too long when he handed me a glass or showed me a book, and I got lost in those moments, imagining forbidden scenarios that made me blush. One evening, while I was sitting on his sofa, Bruno came a little closer than usual. I could feel his warm breath near my neck. He told me a story of his youth, one of those stories that leave you with a mixture of melancholy and desire. Every word was a caress, and I fought against that desire to get closer, to break that boundary that we had respected until that moment. Then, one day, Bruno broke the silence with a shocking truth. He called me on the phone. His voice was different, darker. He asked me to come to him immediately. Luckily, Filippo was out of town on business, so I didn't have to make excuses. I dressed quickly, a mixture of curiosity and fear pushing me forward. When I arrived, I found Bruno sitting in the living room, his face marked by an expression I had never seen on him. I sat down next to him, and he took a long breath before speaking. "Teresa, there is something you need to know, something that could change everything." My heart began to pound in my chest. Bruno explained to me that he had known Filippo for a long time. It was no coincidence that he had chosen that house. He told me that he had followed Filippo, that he had studied him, discovering a dark side that I would never have imagined. He showed me evidence, photographs, letters, messages that revealed betrayals, lies, a double life that made my blood run cold. "I'm not telling you this to hurt you," Bruno whispered, "but because I couldn't stand seeing you live in ignorance, as happened to me in the past." Those words hit me deeply. Every piece of evidence he showed me was like a knife cutting into my trust. I no longer knew what was real, who Philip really was. Yet part of me couldn't help but wonder, what if Bruno was lying? What if this was all his plan to push me away from my husband and closer to him? I went home with a head full of doubts and a shattered heart. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Filippo with other women. I heard Bruno's words whisper in my ear. I finally decided to find out the truth. The next morning, while Philip was still out, I started looking for evidence. I opened drawers, searched through his documents, turned on his computer. Every click was a sharp blade, every opened folder a dive into the void. I felt like a thief in my own life, but the need to know kept me going. I scrolled through old messages, hidden emails, documents I should never have read. And as I progressed, reality showed itself in all its cruelty. My perfect life was just an illusion. And now, between Filippo's lies and Bruno's mysteries, I had to choose what my truth was. After hours of searching, my trembling hands finally grabbed an old diary hidden in the back of Philip's closet. It was a simple black agenda, anonymous and dusty, an object I had never seen before. My heart was pounding, an eerie tune ringing in my ears as I slowly opened it. Among the yellowed pages, I found notes and notes on meetings, travel, appointments. Everything seemed normal, until a name began to emerge with disturbing consistency. Laura. Every time I read that name, a shiver ran down my spine. Who was Laura? And why did it seem so important to Philip? Have you ever found something you shouldn't have seen? Tell us in the comments. The need for answers became a flame burning inside me. That night I couldn't stop. I continued digging, driven by an uncontrollable fury. Filippo had returned late, had fallen asleep immediately, leaving me alone with my suspicions and that diary, which now seemed like a loaded weapon. Over the next few days, I approached Bruno with a mixture of fear and distrust. I told him nothing of what I had discovered, but I carefully observed his every reaction, looking for signs of a double game. Meanwhile, in my mind, Bruno's words were intertwined with that name, Laura, which continued to bounce in my thoughts. One evening, Philip returned home even later than usual. He was nervous. You could read it in his sudden movements and shifty glances. He didn't say anything, just went straight to the bedroom, leaving me alone in the living room with the weight of my questions. I decided to face it. I gathered courage, and with a calm but trembling voice, I asked him who Laura was. His silence transfixed me. He remained motionless, then tried to divert, to change the subject, but I gave him no escape. After a long sigh, he confessed to me that Laura was an old acquaintance, someone from his past, before I came into his life. But his words were vague, constructed to protect me from a truth he didn't want to share. As time passed, the gap between me and Philip widened like a crack in glass. His every word, every gesture seemed shrouded in mystery. and I could no longer look at him without feeling the weight of the secrets between us. Only Bruno seemed to offer me the sincerity I desperately wanted. During one of our meetings, Bruno became more and more welcoming and understanding. He proposed that I investigate further, suggesting involving people who were used to moving in the shadows, capable of discovering hidden truths. "You might know everything about Philip and that mysterious Laura," he told me in a voice that was honey and poison at the same time. I felt trapped, attracted by that dangerous proposal. It was an offer that promised answers but threatened to drag me into a dark world. I took my time. I decided to reflect, but Bruno's closeness became more and more irresistible. One evening, after yet another argument with Filippo, I found refuge in Bruno's arms. I was exhausted, physically and mentally. I abandoned myself to him, with no more restraints. His hug was strong, reassuring. For an instant, it felt like the chaos of my life dissolved. Bruno caressed my face delicately. His intense eyes seemed to read my every fragility. The world around stopped. Without saying a word, our lips joined in a deep kiss, full of a passion that had remained hidden for too long. At that moment, everything else vanished. There was no more guilt or doubts, just the need to feel desired like never before. His hands explored my skin with a gentleness that made me tremble, as if he were discovering every hidden corner of my soul. That night, Bruno was my escape. His every touch, every whisper, erased the wounds left by Philip's lies. He guided me gently towards his bed, a place I had seen many times only as a spectator of his past life. Now, in that room full of history and secrets, I finally felt like a protagonist. Hand in hand, without haste, we lost ourselves in the rhythm of our breaths, in total abandonment. There was an absolute complicity, an intimacy that went beyond all rationality. I felt alive, desired, free. And while the night enveloped everything, I abandoned myself to him, letting the pleasure and passion overwhelm me, taking me away from every uncertainty, every lie, every wound that the past had inflicted on me. Bruno's every caress was a silent language, a secret whispered through skin contact. His hands spoke louder than words. They promised welcome and understanding. I felt transported by a feeling of freedom, as if I could finally be myself, without masks or fears. Between the sheets, in that night that seemed to have no end, Bruno revealed to me emotions that I didn't know I could feel. He held me with a disarming delicacy, almost as if he wanted to create a safe cocoon where I could hide from the world. In that embrace, I felt protected, enveloped in a passion I had never known. We lost ourselves in that night, like two souls who finally found their refuge in each other. And as dawn approached, the guilt I feared dissolved, becoming a distant echo. When I opened my eyes in the morning, I found Bruno looking at me with a kind smile. His fingers brushed my face, and for a moment everything seemed perfect. It was as if time had stopped, as if we could stay there forever, away from judgments and lies. But reality knocked on the door. The sun's rays filtering through the curtains brought me back to the awareness of what I had just done, of the risk I had taken. I dressed in silence, with a heavy heart. Bruno looked at me without saying anything, as if he knew that from then on I would have to face everything alone. When he walked me to the door, he held me for one last hug. "Whatever happens, remember that you made a choice for yourself," she told me in a firm voice. Those words accompanied me as I returned home. As soon as I entered, I found Filippo waiting for me. His face was serious, his gaze penetrating. He knew something, or perhaps he simply sensed that something had changed. "Where have you been?" he asked me in a voice that seemed to come from a distant place. At that moment, I knew I couldn't lie. I told him everything. Every word came out with difficulty, but I knew that prolonging the deception would only increase the suffering. I told him about Bruno, the discoveries I had made, the lies, and the distance that had separated us. Philip remained silent, listening. The pain in his eyes pierced me. When I finished, he sighed, looking down. "Maybe I should have told you the truth too all along," he whispered. Those words weighed like rocks. I realized that he too was hiding secrets, which perhaps we had lost due to unspoken words, never confessed fears. Over the next few days, we found ourselves talking, delving into our lives and our souls. It was a painful but necessary journey. Ultimately, we decided to take a break, to give time a chance to heal our wounds. With Bruno, everything ended as it began, in silence. We both understood that we had only been a temporary refuge for each other. He wrote me one last letter, full of sweetness and melancholy. He thanked me for those shared moments, for allowing him to feel the thrill of passion once again. I was left alone, but finally at peace with myself. I learned to accept my choices, my mistakes, and my desires. The path to the truth had been difficult, but it had revealed to me who I really was and what I wanted from my life. If you want to receive new videos of the series, write "I want the sequel" in the comments. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to receive a preview of future publications. Thank you.